Hello, everyone. My name is Natalie Solis, and my background is that I completed my undergrad at the University of Southern California, where I also worked in admissions. I also was a USC transfer student, so I have background information on that transfer application process as well. After graduating from USC in 2018, I went straight to do my master's at Harvard Divinity School, where I also worked in admissions. My background interests have always been in the arts and museums, and I'm currently a curator with the Smithsonian Institution in DC.
Okay, wonderful. And then, so to start us off here, what is your number one college admissions tip to high schoolers that might be watching this?
Yes, so my number one college admissions tip is to really be authentic. And this really requires you learning more about yourself. And I think that the college admissions process is a great time to do that, really figuring out that transition from being in high school to being in adulthood. And that authenticity really shines through in applications. And it also benefits you because you'll also have a better understanding of how you want to pursue college, which location, what kind of institution. It can really alleviate any problems you have later on as well in terms of choosing a major, which institution fits best. So really having that authenticity shine through is a crucial part of college admissions.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Having that is really crucial. And I think many of our viewers are probably interested in understanding what does the actual process look like whenever you conduct admissions? What does that process look like?
Yes, so the college admissions process definitely looks different across various institutions. So, in my experience, what the admissions process looks like is it can really range. So, first, it'll go off to an initial reviewer, and this person will start going through marking up the application. It then will go to either second or third rounds, depending on how the application is weighed. So, if someone looks like they have a probable chance of being admitted, and they'll go on to the second reviewer. And if there are any discrepancies between how the first and second reviewer have marked an application, it will also go to a third reviewer in that instance.
Mhm.
That's typically the most streamlined way of how applications are reviewed. And in addition to that, there are additional materials that you can submit. So, doing something like an interview with an alumni, participating in an interview process, I always really encourage that because it not only shows your demonstrated interest in a school, but also it's another data point for us to really evaluate the application. And if there are any inconsistencies, it can really help your side of the application and really make a difference in terms of that. So I recommend being able to participate, being as active as possible in terms of that application process, because it is another area that you can show demonstrated interest. It is a small area component, but it definitely can help swing if you are in the middle ground of the application selection. In addition to that, that's a very streamlined process in terms of how those reviews work. And in higher level instances, in terms of, let's say you are in the running for a large merit scholarship, what typically also happens is that a review panel will also review those applications as well. So that's why I really recommend getting in contact with your specific admission counselor at an institution, already showing that you have that demonstrated interest. Being to make more of a personal connection is really crucial because they are reviewing typically thousands of applications in one season. So anything you can do to really stand out in a positive way would be of your best interest so that your application will be memorable and really stand out, whether you're going through a typical review process or also if you're going through the running for a larger merit scholarship, that's typically done through more of a panel as well.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for that. That makes a ton of sense. And that's something that I always encourage students to do, to demonstrate interest when they can, and do the on-campus interview and so on. And I think in many cases, some kind of downplay the significance of the interviews, but it is one data point. I think, as you said, it helps when people are kind of on the cusp of admission. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And then one other question I had is, how do you evaluate applicants' academic achievements versus the extracurricular aspects versus their personal characteristics?
Yes, so those all are definitely taken into account, and they are weighed in different ways also in relation to your application. So the academic achievements, the component obviously is at the forefront given that it is a college admissions process. So essentially, We review those individuals and those achievements also in relation to your own academic pool. So, like, for example, local high school, local area that you're um, part of, also depending on how the admission counseling is split. So, for example, if you are located in an area where we typically have a lot of applicants, we'll review you in that local context as well. So that is really important to note because let's say if your school does not offer a significant amount of AP courses or like IB diploma program, you won't necessarily get docked because we're well aware that those opportunities are not available to you. So that's something really crucial to keep in mind. So also what really I think benefits and sets students apart is if they have a demonstrated academic interest in a particular area. So let's say you do research, you've done summer camps, you've done your own like community involvement project related to a specific area or help mentor other students. That's a really big plus in addition to just grades, seeing the amount of AP, IB courses you take. So that's how those academic achievements are weighed, really in community and also seeing what you do with the resources that you have access to. The second component of the extracurricular activities is also that key component of demonstrated interest. We really want to see that applicants have put thought into how they are spending their time. And this also is done in community. So let's say you do a lot of community involvement, maybe you're very athletic. Really showing that demonstrated interest is really crucial in terms of figuring out how you're spending your time outside of school. And also, I really want to emphasize that let's say if you have familiar responsibilities, if you work a part-time job, really be able to share that with the admissions committee because it is how you are spending your time. So we won't necessarily, just because you don't necessarily do a lot of clubs, but you have familial responsibilities, someone in your family is sick, and you work a part-time job, that is not something that we will dock you for at all. It's actually really admirable. So really being specific and as detailed as possible in terms of what you're doing outside of school. And then the last point of the personal, that's also very crucial in terms of we want to know you as a holistic person. We're not admitting a specific GPA and a specific test score of a person. We really want to know what you do holistically and what you'd offer to the college, university community as well, seeing what kind of person you'd be on campus. So really learning as much about your own personal details in a way that really you can encapsulate and wrap around your application package is crucial because we really want to be able to imagine what you would bring to the community, what kind of person you'd be, and really what you'd like to do on the campus as well. So being able to really show through your past experiences what you can bring to the future is really important to us.
Absolutely. Thanks for all of those insights. One of the things that you mentioned, I always remind students. So students are viewed within the context of their own background, right? So say like an international school student from Dubai is not going to be compared to a student that's low income, first generation in Ohio. So that's something that I always remind students, and then like the vice versa is also true, right? So like if a student has more resources in their school, then they'll be held to a higher standard than someone that, for example, has to work a part-time job to support their family. And to kind of build off that, I think it's important students don't count themselves out because they don't necessarily have like all the right extracurricular activities. Because, for example, they had to spend lots of hours at a part-time job. Those kinds of things can be, viewed positively as well. So, yeah, thanks for all those insights. And then I think one other question I had is just about the essays. So, what do you think makes a successful essay? And in your experience, what were some of the essays that were most memorable for you?
Yes, those are all really great questions. And I feel like the essays are always the point of anxiety for students. And really, what makes a good essay differs for each student. There are definitely techniques that I implement or that I've seen in the past. So, really having a strong opening hook. We really want to grab the reader's attention instantly, making it
Mhm.
format in a way that's easy to not only skim, but also to make notes, seeing what's memorable. We don't want a large block of text with no paragraphs. You really have to be mindful of the essays. I think taking creative liberties as well in terms of being able to highlight that you are a strong writer and using really what it is that would make benefit your application. So really being able to balance that out. And what is crucial to the essay process is really the pre-work before you even start writing the essay. So brainstorming, I have students brainstorm different opening hooks, working. It's a very large drafting process. Typically, students do at least over 5 different drafts of the essay, and it can take different more forms. So what I really recommend is just having those different drafts working, being able to work across the drafts so that you can create the strongest essay possible. So really it's that pre-work of figuring out, okay, well, what do you want to write about? What would be a strong story? What it is that you have to share that will make you really stand out in the application process. And that's something that admissions consultants that we work on together, because it can be difficult to figure out what it is that makes you a unique applicant, especially if you're looking from your own perspective. So in terms of that, it's really helpful to just dialogue it out with folks, share with whoever different ideas you have, what's something about you that's really unique and that will stand out and really be a very strong hook. In addition to that, I think being as strategic as possible in the supplemental essays as well, really showing that you've done your research on the school and why it would be not only a good fit for you, but a good fit for the school for you to be a student there. So really showing that it's a reciprocal relationship as well. And in addition to having that strong opening hook, the reciprocity, really having that research that you've done into the school. Another really important area is that it's strong throughout the essay. So we really also want to see a strong closer as well. Leave us with a very good impression of you. So it is a process that is unique to every person, but what is central is having that not only brainstorming, figuring out what you want to say, but also the drafting process. It's not something, no one will write a perfect essay in one draft or in one afternoon. It is a longer process. So really keeping that in mind in terms of how you are creating your essay and alleviating any anxiety, because that anxiety will produce writer's block and it just won't work in that sense. So really just writing, focusing on that process and doing a drafting process. So it's better to have a lot more material at the beginning and to be scrambling at the end towards deadlines and feeling like you're under the word limit.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more. Having like a bank where you have lots of like ideation and lots of brainstorming and you have it all on paper can be really helpful. So like you said, you're not scrambling toward the end, and having that second set of eyes, I think too, is so important. Having either like a college consultant or some kind of expert look it over. I think that can definitely add a lot to an essay. And then I have one last question for you, and it's just whenever we work with students, we want them to show their passions. And I think one way to do that is through a passion project or academic research. Could you speak a little bit about how you think either like say like a passion project in one's community or research might help the application?
Yes, I think that passion projects and any academic research, anything that you can do to show sustained involvement in a particular area is crucial, because we don't want applicants who seem very wishy-washy and will flop around. And especially that also affects our yield. So if we have an applicant who has everything, amazing test scores, everything, it looks good in terms of academic achievements and extracurricular involvements, but they don't necessarily seem interested in anything for a sustained period of time, it can definitely raise some flags. And colleges don't want to hurt their yield rate as well. So that's really crucial. And I think that especially given how much of a more holistic turn, and especially with the pandemic, all of the changes that have happened to college admissions, it's really the passion projects and those sustained periods of research or community involvement that are really taking a lead, because we have just that as another data point that is becoming more popular. So really being able to show that sustained involvement. And it doesn't have to be a Nobel Prize winning research project. Really, we are wanting you to just show that involvement in a specific area. And if it ties into your interests, that's perfectly great. But also, if it's just something outside, like a sustained hobby, that also works. Really, anything you can do to show that you're a well-rounded person and that you'd contribute not only in the academic classroom, but also in the outside environment, in the local community, whatever your interests are, that is always really helpful and will really help to humanize your application as well.